Hello, everyone. Welcome to the CFE Support webinar series. My name is Debbie Bayless, and today's webinar is Managing Exam Stress. Before I begin the webinar, I want to extend a big thank you for the great partnership that CPA Western School of Business, CPA Ontario, and CPA Atlantic School of Business have. They've done a fantastic job in ensuring that this valuable information is available to you as you prepare to write CFE. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to your province or region. I've included their email addresses here. So based on feedback from previous candidates, we felt it was important to discuss stress management early on. Many of you may be a little apprehensive at this particular point. And I know the upcoming Capstone 2 module workshop is going to happen shortly. And based on my experience as a session leader, many of the candidates feel a certain level of anxiety when they write their first day 1, day 2, and day 3 case. Please know that that's normal. So managing your stress is key to successfully passing CFE. As a result, today I'm going to talk about the different sources of exam stress. I'm going to provide you with some anxiety reducing strategies, in particular the day of the exam, and I'm also going to provide you with some additional resources. I love this quote. The CFE is a marathon, not a sprint. In order to successfully complete a marathon, you must remain focused and maintain that stamina. The same principle applies as the weeks come up to when you're writing the exam and while you're writing the exam. Hence, the reason it is so important to practice self-care and stress management. I want to provide you with an example of something that happened while I was an exam supervisor several years ago, and it will really emphasize the importance of self-care. During day 2, one of the candidates asked if they could discuss something with me. Quite unusual, but we went out into the hallway and she told me that she was exhausted. Up the last week before she wrote CFE, she was staying up late. She had very little sleep. As a result, she was exhausted. She couldn't concentrate. And she said, I can't finish the exam. I encouraged her to go back and do the best that she could. Now, unfortunately, she didn't pass CFE. However, the next year when she came back, I noticed a significant difference right away. She was confident. She came up to me and she said, I'm prepared. I made sure that I took good care of myself and I spread my studying over an extended period of time. Because remember, when you're writing CFE, you want to be at your optimal performance. So what are the sources of exam stress? And I'm going to go through each of these individually. Procrastination regrets, an imbalance between work and studies, a lack of proper workspace, not enough sleep, unhealthy eating, not enough breaks, and not prioritizing the course material. So let's go through each of those. Let's talk about procrastination regrets. Inaction causes stress. In many situations, people feel paralyzed. They think that there's just so much to do, so they don't end up doing anything. I'm hoping that you've already started to create your study plan and schedule. If you haven't, think about it in the context of breaking your tasks into smaller, manageable pieces. Assign realistic times for each of those tasks. Now, for example, make sure it's reasonable because allocating 1 hour to review the Income Tax Act, that's not reasonable. When you're creating your action plan, make sure that you're allocating time to complete those practice cases, to debrief them, to document your key learnings, to time to study those technical areas you're struggling with, and then to practice. Make sure that you also include your work and personal commitments. An imbalance between work and studies. So working and studying at the same time, it can be exhausting. I'd like to change that statement. Working and studying at the same time is exhausting. Many of you might already be a little tired, especially if you're just completing Capstone 1. So it's important to find a good balance. Here's some tips. But even before I review the tips, I'm really encouraging you to sit down with your manager. Talk to your manager about your work commitments and let them know what your study commitments are between now and when you write CFE. So together you can come up with a plan that ensures that you're able to meet your work commitments and you're also able to adequately prepare when you write CFE. So define the number of hours you have available to study. How much time do you have between now and when you write? What is the best time to study? Is that in the morning? Can you use some time over lunch, evenings, and or weekends? Define your major priorities. You cannot do everything. You are human, so it's important to define your priorities. Is there an opportunity to spend more time and divert your focus from work to preparing to write CFE? Keep all of the relevant parties well informed. So besides talking to your employer, it's important to talk to your significant other, your family, and friends. Let them know what your schedule looks like between now and when you write, because give them an opportunity to support you in your preparation. Recognize the need for well-being. Be on the lookout for signs of burnout, such as insomnia, the inability to concentrate and keep that focus, irritability, and a very big example of anxiety is suffering from panic attacks. So if you experience any of these symptoms, it's important to sit back and say, do I need to take a bit of time to relax, whether it's an evening, a day, or a few days? Now, I know that seems anti-productive, but it's important that you again revitalize yourself so that you're refreshed and you could go back to studying, and you can do that much more efficient and effectively. A lack of a proper workspace. It's important to find a place that's going to work best for you. So some people need to work in an environment where there are no distractions or limited distractions. I know some of the candidates I've worked with in the past, they've actually gone to local libraries. Others can work, if it's not too noisy, in a cafe, or they're able to find a place at home that they can work. Make sure that you have a comfortable chair and you have great lighting. If you're going to be studying and writing your cases at home, see if you can set a permanent place for the next 2 months so that you don't have to keep putting things back and setting them up again. Not enough sleep. Many of us kind of burn the candle at both ends. And what that means is we get up early in the morning and we stay up very late at night. And for some time, you might be able to function well. But extended periods of exhaustion, it's going to have a negative impact on your well-being. You certainly don't want to find yourself exhausted right before you write CFE or while you're writing CFE. So according to a study from the Harvard Medical School Health Sleep Division, sleep optimizes focus, the ability consolidation of memory, and aids our ability to recall information. That's certainly all the things we want to happen when you're writing CFE. So there's 4 important ways to ensure and increase your chances of getting a good night's rest. Try and go to sleep and get up the same time every day. You want to set that internal clock. So what I challenge you to do is think about, what time do I need to get up in the morning to have a good breakfast, to drive to wherever you're going to write CFE, to make sure that you arrive on time. Take whatever that time is, backtrack by 8 hours, and that's the time you should be going to sleep. This advice about going to sleep and getting up at the same time, that not only applies for during the week, it applies on the weekends. Now I know sometimes we stay up later on the weekends, but still it's important to get up at the same time, even if you need to take a quick nap. You want that internal clock working well so that when the first day you write CFE, you are used to getting up. You are used to your brain working on full cylinders when you start to write CFE. Keep those electronic devices out of your bedroom. They distract us. They prevent us from getting a good night's sleep. Make sure that you wind down before you go to bed. So don't just, keep working and then finish. And I used to do this all the time. I would just work right up until I go to sleep, and then I would try to go to sleep. And what would happen? I would sit there, I'd be laying down, and my brain would still be racing. I'd still be thinking about what I was just doing. And then I started worrying that I couldn't get to sleep. You should take at least an hour where you stop working, you stop looking at those electronic devices and do something to slow your brain down, to relax. Things like whether it's reading, listening to calming music. Unhealthy eating. So if you've been consuming nothing but coffee, energy drinks, junk food, then that's likely contributing to your stress level. Healthy eating, it has a positive impact on our focus and our memory. Again, important things that we need when we're preparing and writing CFE. So it's worth making a 30-minute investment to prepare those healthy, balanced meals so that you can put them in the freezer, instead of ordering takeout. Or if you're too busy, order some kind of food service that provides healthy meals that you can put in the freezer so you can bring those out. Now, I know the advice I'm providing you, and particularly when it comes to eating healthy, is easier said sometimes than done. But the advice we're giving you helps increase your chances of being physically fit and mentally prepared to write CFE because you want to be in your best performance. You want to be peak performance when you write. Not taking enough breaks. Some of us tend to read material nonstop for hours. You've got to give yourself a break. Rest those eyes. So change your surroundings once in a while. If you're reading a lot, so every 60 minutes to 90 minutes, get up. Whether it's walk around your neighborhood for a moment, if it is jog or do some gardening, make sure that you're giving your eyes a break. And then what happens is you're able to return to your studies. You're feeling much more refreshed and energized. So, some other anxiety reducing strategies. Well, the best strategy is to make sure that you're well prepared. And what that means is you need to complete the practice cases in exam like conditions. So, again, that you're simulating that CFE experience. So, if the case is 75 minutes, sit down and write the case fully within that 75 minutes. When you write a day 2 case, write it in one sitting for the full 5 hours. When you're writing, make sure that you're banishing those negative thoughts. Sometimes what we tell ourselves is, we don't know what we're doing. I'm confused. I don't understand. I can't do this. Banish those thoughts. Instead, replace them with, I know what I'm doing. I can do this. What we tell ourselves is what we believe. And when you start telling yourself that you can do this, you know what you're doing, it reduces your stress, and all of a sudden, it comes top of mind what you need to do when it comes to that assessment opportunity. A very good stress reducing technique is to take those deep breaths. So when you find that you're starting to get nervous, take a deep breath. Say when you're creating your situational analysis and writing your outline for day 1. After you've completed that big task, take a deep breath. The same applies if you are heading into and you're going to do a very difficult assessment opportunity. Banish those negative thoughts and take a deep breath. Avoid the perfectionism trap. You do not need to have a perfect response to achieve a competent rating. I want to say that again. You do not need a perfect response to achieve a competent rating. The markers are looking for a reasonable attempt. As you practice writing and debriefing these cases, you will get a better sense of when enough is enough and you need to move on. Because as I shared during the webinar, Understanding the CFE, the goal is to complete all of the assessment requirements within the time frame that you have. So complete them to your best of ability, and the goal is to get as many competent responses as possible. It's important that you know when you need to be and where you need to be when it comes to writing the CFE exam. If you've never been there before, make sure you take a trial run. Make sure that you know where the parking is. Allocate a lot of extra time in case there's different construction going on. A very important stress reducer is to prioritize that course material. So the competency map, that is your syllabus. It outlines all of the testable skills. The great news is it's already been prioritized for you through the assignment of proficiency levels. So proficiency level A is the most important, and that's where you should put a lot of your energy. Then B, and then C. For those of you who went through the professional education program, I encourage you to go back to your study notes. So it'll help you identify where your knowledge gaps are. Make sure that you have a clear understanding of what you know and what you understand, and that's really level C. Most importantly, what can you do? And prioritize your time accordingly because time is a scarce resource. Many candidates spend a large amount of their time on tasks that they are very proficient at. Spend your time on those knowledge gaps and be directed by proficiency level A first, then B, then C. So let's look at what's testable from an accounting and assurance standard, just to give you an idea. So for the assurance handbook, you're tested at a mix of proficiency level B or A, mostly B at the core level, which is what you're going to be tested when it comes to when it comes to day 1 and day 3. For IFRS and ASPE, there's a mix of proficiency level B or A, but at core, it's mostly A. For not-for-profit, for Part 3 in combination with Part 2 for ASPE and Part 1, if the case permits it, it's either level B or A. For concepts unique to government accounting, it's awareness only, so that's the level C. For standard changes that have taken place but are not in effect yet, that's level C at the core. Or for those of you who are writing for your day 2 audit and assurance as your role, that would be level B in the elective. So a wonderful tool that's available to you is there's an Excel version of the CPA competency map. I'm going to show you in just one moment how to create sortable files using that Excel spreadsheet. Now you do have access to that in D2L under Introduction to Capstone 2 and the CFE. It's under the content. You hit the link for CPA competency map and you drill down to the bottom of the page and hit the Excel version. So first of all, for a start, I recommend that you actually create three sortable files. The first will be for financial reporting, the second for management accounting, and the third for your role. Now, the reason I'm stating start with these is because most of the assessment opportunities, the combined assessment opportunities for day 2 and day 3, a large bulk of them are financial reporting, management accounting, and your role specific. Now, you do still need to create sortable files for the other competencies because there are minimum expectations, an undisclosed number of reaching competence you need to achieve for each one of the 6 technical competencies. If you haven't had an opportunity yet, please make sure that you watch Understanding the CFE. I go into great detail on how day 2 and day 3 is marked. So let's take some time and let's go through and create these sortable spreadsheets. So first of all, this is what the Excel spreadsheet looks like. What we're going to do, because we're going to create a sheet specifically for financial reporting. So what we'll do first is get rid of all of the other competencies. Make sure that you highlight the line below tax. Okay, so let's delete these. Perfect. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to expand the financial reporting. There's quite a few columns here of information that I don't need. So let's get rid of everything under entry. So we're going to delete that. My goodness, there we go. My mouse is giving me a hard time today. We're going to delete the outcomes under core. And we're going to delete everything under elective. We will keep the knowledge information because this outlines the different tasks. Financial reporting was covered in Core 1, so we're going to delete Core 2. Now what I'm going to do is I want to go under and filter the Core 1. So now I have the ability to sort by proficiency level. So proficiency level A. These are all the different tasks that are testable at level A. So let's drill down a little bit here. And I want you to look at, I want to show you, let's see here. Okay, here are some of the financial reporting issues that are testable at level A. So that means you need to know them extremely well. It also means that you need to expel more effort and energy when it comes to those particular assessment opportunities. So I want to share with you what are some of the examples of previous financial reporting issues on past CFEs. And I want to be very clear. I'm in no way saying these will be on CFE this September. This information is just for illustration purposes only, but it gives you a good sense of the importance of starting with proficiency level A, making sure that you're very comfortable with those, then B, and so on. So revenue recognition, in particular IFRS 15, and where candidates face some challenges is they weren't comfortable with the criteria, the discussion, and determining whether there were distinct performance obligations. Struggled with allocating that transaction costs. There were more than one revenue recognition in certain situations, and unfortunately, candidates missed that. It's important to deal with each of those issues individually. And an example is signing bonus and right of return. From a recent Board of Examiners report that they said candidates did not adequately use the case facts to support the 5 steps of IFRS 15, in particular the performance obligation step. Foreign currency, initial and subsequent measurement, goodwill and intangible assets, PPE, contingent liabilities, contingent assets. So you'll notice these are all level A and they're found in your competency map and you can sort it by that tool. So let's look at, I now want to look at the premise is the same for management accounting. So I've deleted everything else. Let's get rid of those columns we don't need. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that, everyone. Management accounting is covered in Core 2. So we're going to get rid of the Core 1 column. We don't need that. And instead, what we're going to do is sort Core 2. We're going to filter it. So again, you have the ability to sort by proficiency level A. So let's look at some of the common management accounting. Oh, but even before I do that, here are some great resources for you when it comes to financial reporting. So in your financial reporting ebook, chapter 17 for revenue under ASPE, chapter 18 for revenue under IFRS, chapter 19, this is an important chapter because if there is a revenue recognition, it's not going to be an easy one. You're going to be tested at proficiency level A. So this goes over revenue specific applications, consignment, right of return, rebates, volume discount, bill and hold, principal agent agreements, warranties, refundable and non-refundable fees. So lots of great information. Make sure that you go through that. What are some of the examples of items that have appeared on previous CFEs? Activity-based costing, cost volume profit analysis, whether it's break even by unit, dollar, contribution margin, point of indifference, costing, variance, whether it's sales variance, sales price, rate and efficiency variance, using data in evaluating that data to determine budgets and prepare budgets and or forecasts. Again, this is for illustration purposes only, but each one of these items, they're either proficiency level A or B. Great resources available to you when it comes from the Management Accounting ebook. Chapter 6 is costing, and it includes activity-based costing. Candidates struggle with that concept. Chapter 9, cost volume profit analysis. Chapter 21, variance analysis. There's also some great flashcards, and they're available for you again under Capstone, the Introduction to Capstone 2 and CFE. So they're under the resources, and you can download them, and there are printing instructions. Now I want to take a moment because the last sortable file that I'm going to show you is you should sort your role. And this time we need to sort it for the elective level. And there are a few roles that are closely linked to, management accounting or to financial reporting. So if you are going to be writing performance management, that's your role that you're going to specialize in day 2. There's a very close link to management accounting, and therefore there's a stronger requirement from an elective level for management accounting. If you're writing audit and assurance, there's a very close link with financial reporting. And again, when you're tested at the elective level, there's stronger expectations. So this example here, I have gotten rid of all of the other technical areas that you don't need. So we're going to keep strategy and governance for performance management, and we're going to keep management accounting. So what we're going to do is let's make sure that we've got those all expanded. And then let's get rid of the areas that we don't need. So let's get rid of the entry. We don't need the core information, so we're going to get rid of that because we want to for our role. We want to make sure that we're looking at the elective level. So the next thing that you need to do is we need to filter all of the different areas of expertise. Once you've done that, then you can delete the columns that you don't need. Now, what you can do is filter by proficiency level A. So I strongly encourage you to do what I've showed you and create those sortable files, because then you can use that information to determine where your knowledge gaps are and where you should be spending your energy. And here are the instructions of what I went through. So I want to share some important comments from the Board of Examiners. They have found that the past few CFEs, this pattern has continued, where candidates are generally avoiding or struggling with the more complex topics, that they appear to be more comfortable with the more common, straightforward technical topics. Candidates should expect to see a variety of issues of varying difficulty. So they're encouraging you to ensure that you have a sufficient level of technical knowledge in all competency areas outlined in the CPA competency map. I also want to share some of the comments from the Board of Examiners when it comes to your day 2 role. They have said that it appears to be more candidates who don't seem comfortable with their chosen role. Remember, the expectations on day 2 for your role-specific assessment opportunities are being tested at the elective level. The Board of Examiners strongly encourage candidates to select their day 2 role carefully and to consider their ability to respond to that competency area at the elective proficiency level. There's 2 very important resources that you need to make sure that you're extremely comfortable with. The only resource that you have available when you write CFE is NOSHA, so the CPA Handbook and the Income Tax Collection. Make sure that you're very comfortable retrieving information, because that will help minimize your stress when you need to use these resources when you're writing your response. The Board of Examiners said that one area where there was a lack of technical knowledge was evident when there were assessment opportunities regarding the handbook or the Income Tax Act knowledge. So you have to be comfortable. Expect the unexpected. So you want to make sure that you can quickly retrieve the information that you need. Many of you are watching, were part of the professional education program. So you're very comfortable with Surpass. For some of you, you're challenging the exam. It's important that you know what you can and cannot do when it comes to Surpass. In particular, what you can and cannot do in Word and Excel. There's a great document and lots of information, the tips and trick document. I'm going to go through that in a moment, actually. So let's talk about some of the tips and tricks. When it comes to case writing, I'm going to reinforce it again. Practice writing the case in one session and in the time that's allocated. When you're writing the case, use your laptop. Use that one small screen. That's all you have when you write CFE. You don't have a second screen. Use a paper copy of that case, because that's what you'll have when you write CFE. And in Excel, you only have one workable tab. So do everything in one tab. I always say to the candidates, Excel and Word, they're fake Excel and Word. It's in a lockdown, secure exam. So there's certain functions that you can run into some difficulty. I'm going to share what these are. So if you frequently are copying and pasting large amounts from NOSHA, it's going to either slow down the system. What I find is it normally kicks you out of the system. That's okay. We can get you back in very quickly. Also, there's no value added if you're copying substantially large amounts of information from NOSHA. Just copy what you need. You're not going to achieve a reaching competent, let alone a competent response if you're simply just copying information from NOSHA. The system, it backs up every 10 seconds. Our advice is don't cut and paste. If you want to move something around, copy and paste and then delete it. So just in case something happens and you get kicked out, it won't be lost. Also, when you're in Excel, you don't need to format your numbers. If you want to, make sure that you avoid your columns and your rows. Because again, the system can't handle it. It will kick you out, but we can get you back in very quickly. The Alt tab doesn't work. So I know that this might actually might make you quite nervous. I want you to know I've been an exam supervisor for a very long time. And the last CFE, over the 3 days, only one person was kicked out once. So again, I'm sharing these tips because it's going to help reduce your stress. Want to also highlight about the pre-populated financial information. So if there's any financial information that's more than 10 lines, they're going to provide it in additional tabs that are read only in Excel. So I have a copy of what that looks like. So for day one, sheet one, that's the only tab that you can work in that you can perform calculations. But you'll have a second tab for English and one for French that if there are any financial information that's 10 lines or longer, you can copy that information and input it into sheet one. So you can use that. It'll save you valuable time. In day two, there's many more tabs. There's going to be one for the common assessment opportunities, both in English and French, and then English and French for each of your roles. In day three, there will be tab for each of the cases. So again, if it's more than 10 lines long. Here's an important reminder from the Board of Examiners. Data analysis is an important part of the CPA competency map. And so the financial information being populated, it allows you to perform some data analysis in a more comprehensive and effective manner. So that information is given to you, and some of it you need to take it and you need to do something with it. For example, maybe you need to perform data analysis to identify anomalies. This could be an audit and assurance question for your role, and then provide some audit procedures. So again, make sure that you're looking at those tabs and taking advantage of having access to that information. So the day of the exam, some great stress management tips include, a few days before the exam, you want to make sure that you're not staying up late, that you're not exhausted. Take some time, do something fun. Make sure that you're reducing that stress level. The day of the exam, arrive early. Don't arrive late. Make sure that if they say you need to be there an hour and a half, whatever time frame, make sure that you arrive early. You can sign in. You can always leave the room, walk around, reduce that stress. Take those slow, deep breaths when you're feeling overwhelmed. Don't focus on the things outside of your control. Okay, how the exam's going to be marked, what the exam is on. Focus on what you can do. Make sure that on that day three that you reset between cases. So it's almost like you're closing the book. Once you've done the first case, it's done. Let it go, move on to the next case, do the same thing for the second case and for the third case. Make sure that you stick to the recommended time allocations for each of the cases, because the key is to complete all of those assessment opportunities to the best of your ability within the time frame you're given. At the end of the exam, don't stand around and talk to your friends, talk to other people. What did they do on the exam? Because that is just going to increase your stress. Reset at the end of the day. Go out for a nice supper. Relax. Let it go what you've done that day. Now focus and prepare yourself for the next day. I want to share with you some restricted items that I tend to see quite a bit. And again, I'm sharing this so that it's reducing your stress. You cannot bring a pen. Your pencils have to be the old-fashioned pencils. They can't be those mechanical pencils. You can't bring a pencil sharpener or a mouse pad. Make sure that your water bottle is something that you can see through. Bring something to keep you warm in case the room's cold, but make sure you don't bring a hoodie. And it's amazing how many, you know, of our clothing has a hood. So make sure that you don't wear a hoodie. There are lots of great resources for you to help ensure and prepare yourself from a mental perspective and emotionally. So Bridge the Gap, e-mental health, both and CAPS and the Western School of Business, CPA Ontario, and CPA Atlantic School of Business also have some great articles on how to manage that stress. So we've now had understanding the CFE. The recording should be available. Obviously, stress management, the recording is available. We have some upcoming live webinars. You can register for these webinars in D2L on the home page for Introduction to Capstone 2 and CFE. So the path to competent in day 2 is July the 22nd. Time management in day 3 is July the 23rd. Day 1, Mellow Lark Entertainment Inc. is July the 28th. So if you're going to write that case, please attend that webinar. The day 1 for the Singular Textile Corporation is July the 29th. So please enroll in those webinars. If you're not able to attend the live webinar, then the recordings will be available. So again, I wish you the best of luck as you prepare to write CFE, and I hope that you watch the remaining and upcoming webinars. Talk soon.